All right, welcome listeners. Welcome to Kyle and Cody's Called Cinema Cast. Just me this week. Cody is busy, but I got our old friend Janek Ambros showing back up.
Hey, how's it going? And thanks for letting me back on the show. It was fun last time, so I'm excited to talk about the next crazy film I got going.
Yeah, no, Janek has a new movie out, Mondo Hollywoodland. Just released yesterday as of the recording. So you can find it on Amazon currently. If you're in the US, Canadian release comes out in November, correct?
Yeah, it'll be on Prime in November. So yeah, right now it's just Bloom and I have it out right now in the USA, Amazon, and then the UK too.
Yeah, no, I'm probably showing a few of my friends once it officially comes out up here. Know a couple of people that would probably be interested, so I'll probably do a thing about that. Yeah, this we had talked a little bit last time. Why don't you give like a quick little blurb about it? Well, so the audience.
Yeah, so Mondo Hollywoodland, basically this psychedelic comedy, kind of experimental film that follows a kind of groovy mushrooms dealer who's played by my producing partner on it and co-writer Chris Blim, and it basically follows him as he traverses through Hollywood with this kind of man from the fifth dimension narrator, and they go through Hollywood to try to discover what the meaning of Mondo is. And through that, they kind of encounter these Hollywood types in the film industry. They encounter fringe groups in politics. They kind of encounter these dreamers, and it's kind of broken up into these three segments: the Titans and Weirdos and Dreamers. And yeah, it's just a kind of a psychedelic voyage into all things Mondo, and a little bit of an homage to the 60s and 70s films that maybe we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, I watched it all the way through already. It's a pretty damn good movie. I'd definitely give it at least 8 or 9 on it. It's pretty decent. Definitely worth your time if you're looking
Hell yeah.
get that up, get a look on that. Yeah, I one of my you mentioned the man from the fifth dimension, and that he was honestly one of my favorite characters. I was listening to him narrate the beginning of the movie, and I was just prepared to listen to that man for an hour. I just thought he was one of the best narrator characters I've seen in a movie.
Yeah, it was interesting because we originally I was used to be really into these Hollywood documentaries, and they were a lot of the times narrated by like people like James Mason and like Christopher Plummer. So we kind of were oh, that'd be cool if, and because of obviously we're trying to go for something more experimental. Like, what if the narrator kind of breaks the wall and is actually talking to the people? And that's obviously, I guess, been done to some extent, but not as much as that they talk to the characters. So in earlier drafts, he was or cuts rather, and drafts of the script, he was much more like interacting with the characters. But we felt once we set it up, like you said in the beginning, we can kind of put a little bit of a backseat and just kind of set up the rules a little bit. But yeah, obviously it's a little wacky, it's a little crazy, but yeah, no, that's cool. And the narrator is it's voiced by Ted Evans, and he's a really talented voice actor that Blim knows, and he great impressionist and stuff like that. So he's great. So yeah, that was a fun process. And the writer on it with us, our other co-writer Marcus Hart, really he really crushed it with the dialogue of the narrator. He's a very verbose person, so he was like able to really kind of give it this this kind of this the right kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
Especially in the very early sections, you do see like it kind of plays like it's a first person view, and you take advantage of something we had talked a little bit about last time, is the shooting of this on iPhone, and you get you get like these scenes where the guy, I think he crawls over or through some people, and you get that scream that shot, which would be like an impossible angle with any any full on Hollywood camera. Certainly would have been impossible for anything like as little as 25 years ago even. And it's you take absolute advantage of it, and it really sold me on the camera the use of it in this film.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of the kind of, because early on, the original inception of all this was I saw a screening of Mondo Hollywood, which is a 1967 like Mondo film, and it's like it's more of a documentary. It's not narrative. It's not a narrative film. And that was in 2014, and Paul Thomas Anderson presented it, and it's by Robert Cohen, and it's a great weird film, like from the '60s. So the original Inception was like, oh, let's do a virtual reality version that's like modern times. So I actually was out to a few protests in like 2015, I think, and the original idea was to make this a VR film, and I didn't like VR. I felt like it defeated a lot of the purpose of being wanting to make movies, because I do think it's cool to have the audience be the camera or whatever, but like I don't know. It's just me personally. I know friends,
Yeah.
very talented director Ilya Razkov, who he's into that stuff, and that's it's its own art. And he's so talented, and he makes these great VR things. But for me personally, in this movie, I was like, I think what's something closer to that, where it's like it's something I can kind of get away with just bringing around to certain places, or like, and so the iPhone was the next thing, So I remember actually I used to really bother the shit out of Francis Ford Coppola's lawyer by basically being like, "Do you have a? Can I speak to him? Can I speak to him? Can I speak to him?" And this was years ago, and he was eventually just like, "Ah, yeah, fine, okay, I'll like just send a email. Maybe he'll speak to you." And luckily, he was able to. He like responded and was like, "Yeah, let's." And he just like called me one day. It was horrifying. I was like, "Oh my god." And he basically was like giving me this whole spiel about how it's all about story and acting, and you shouldn't be too concerned, especially if you don't have any money, which I didn't. And I mean more like like $1 million or a couple $100,000. Like this is a very small budget movie. So he's like, just don't worry about the camera, because it's like nobody like it doesn't matter as much as maybe younger, sometimes newer filmmakers think, especially if they don't have a lot of money. Like, you don't want to spend all your money on your camera and nothing in your production design, and not put too much thought into the acting and all that stuff. And so then that kind of gave me the idea of just, okay, well, I'll just do it on an iPhone, because I can't afford a camera and like all these things, right? So I just started shooting stuff and kind of messing around with it, and then Blim, once Blim came on board, the whole thing really changed, because and then that was like an actor, and then we kind of were like, all right, let's do this together. So me and him started really making the movie together, and kind of collecting all these great actors, really talented actors we know, and friends, and yeah, just having that iPhone we were able to shoot in the places we wouldn't be able to shoot otherwise. And like you said, the camera movements and stuff, that's just kind of me running around and moving my arms, and like what that would normally would require some sort of like crane or so, like all these other like little gadgets that would be on set with like that would require crew members. But there wasn't really any crew members. It was just me and Blinn. And then a few days we had like Aaron, who plays Caesar. That's I think what he's an incredible actor, but he would help us with sound sometimes. But like, mostly it was really just backpack iPhone, and that really gave us the freedom. And it obviously it doesn't look like a traditional movie because of that sometimes, but it also gave us the ability to just go out and do really weird stuff, that, like you said, would normally require like manpower, man and woman power, to like really like hold a camera in certain places, and that are extremely heavy and large and like all these things. But we didn't have to worry about that. I mean, I could just flail around my arm and make a crazy effect, because the iPhone weighs nothing. So
Yeah, I feel like you get like that little bit of like you talked about having it be VR, you get some of that stuff that would be neat about having a VR movie without having to like fully commit to it, which sounds like maybe bad when you say it like that, but it's like allows you, like a lot of people don't really, like you said, a lot of people don't really aren't as hard on VR as some people. And you get like, okay, here are some of the cool shots we could do with VR, but without like having to be forced into it for like an entire hour 40-minute long movie.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, no, that was like a very old idea, and it just really, like I said, really transformed. Especially once Bloom and I started working together. Then we really started to make a narrative movie. Before it was like this weird like doc thing, but like, and then it really turned into like what it is, which is a narrative film.
Yeah, I love a lot of the psychedelic set dressing you have in this. I love the guy's name. I'm just the character's name.
Boyle.
Yeah, Boyle. Yeah, Norman Boyle. I do like his little. I was really sold on the psychedelic fifth dimensional chair he has in his room that we see in the early parts of the movie with the plasma ball, which is just one of my favorite props of all time. And like you're taking advantage of
Oh
that.
yeah, man, dude. That's too bad. It's too bad Blim's not here now, because that would really get him pumped up, because that was all him, man. He fucking he crushed the production design for a
Hmm.
lot of the movie, and I mean, but especially that whole section. So he built that chair. That chair was kind of like, I think one of the obviously cooler parts of the movie, and that was all him. And he really went wild with that set deck. And I remember shooting that with him, and it was just so fun to shoot all these crazy little gizmos and gadgets he has. It's like he has like this ability to be like a little bit of this like Tim Burton, like Terry Gilliam thing, where he just kind of he puts these objects into scenes, and it really accentuates what I'm trying to, and what us as writers are trying to do. He'll throw in these things as like, and then it'll enhance the scene through set deck and through production design. So yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, I'm the chair's dope.
Oh yeah, I loved it because it's kind of, I don't know if there's a name for this, but like a like a um that whenever they say like steampunks or cyberpunks, but there needs to be a word for like, would you call it imagination punk, where it's just like taking kind of everyday objects that like you looked at as a kid and like, oh yeah, that's a fancy thing that I would pick up and play pretend as a kid, and like showing it as if it's like advanced like mystical technology. I think you'd call it imagination punk, and I just really have a soft spot from it. I've like that was kind of why I bought that. They made a South Park video game, The Stick of Truth, where all the South Park kids are going around dressing and playing as like they're playing pretend fantasy for a day, for the length of the game, and that's what sold me on that. And I just think there should be
Yeah,
more of
yeah.
that.
The
Yeah.
co-writer, Marcus Hart, he's into South Park. I don't know the reference that much, but I'm sure he would. But yeah, no, totally, man. I think that's one thing we all wanted to really, when you make a movie, you're like, there's all these like negative thoughts in your head of like, oh, is this like this isn't like a traditional movie with like even like I think there is like obviously really drawn out or important character beats for all of them, but it's not like a one character centric piece about like dramatic elements of like, oh, what happened to this person and stuff like that. It's really out there, and I think we wanted to kind of I'm trying to, it's hard to explain almost, but like we really wanted to like make sure this was unique, and it was simple way to put it. Like we wanted to make sure this was something that like with a lot of thought and care put into the stuff that would make it unique, but really make it stand out, because there are just so many movies out there right now, right? Like there's a lot of like, and that's great. The democratization of film is like fantastic. That's something actually Coppola talks a lot about. If anybody's interested in checking out what he has to say about that on like YouTube, you can find it, about how like in the future it's just all going to be like people being able to just make stuff, and I think that we're seeing that. But like, well, then that begs the question, like, well, how do you stand out? So like, we hope that this film does at least, at the very least, even if you hate it, even if you hate the movie, it's like you at least have to. We were hoping that somebody will say, well, it is original. You know what I mean? So I think, because I think that's what it's all about. I mean, when you make stuff, it's like it's trying to kind of like push the boundaries a little bit and not try to recreate something that was great and not to say that we're not heavily influenced by all these great artists before us, but
Mhm.
like we really wanted to kind of stick to something where it's imaginative, like what you said, and unique and bizarre and all those kind of things. So using all the elements of filmmaking, we did our best to try to kind of like do that, through writing, through production design, through editing, through just acting, even the kind of tonal shifts of acting in the movie, I think are very odd but interesting. So yeah, and that goes obviously all to our amazing cast. There's so many good actors in the movie. Alex Loinez and Alyssa Sabo, Miranda Hart, Palmer Jones. Like we just have all these like great actors, and that makes it so much easier for someone like me who just can kind of sit there and be like, oh, these people are so smart, and they're going to come up. I mean, a lot of it's improv, so all these kind of elements gave it this uniqueness to it. That's really because of all the people involved.
Yeah, I really did. I kind of get this kind of my kind of thing. Part of why I enjoy the aesthetic of it is like taking the adult world, which is kind of can be kind of stingy and boring, and a lot of like real problems in it, and it's doing what it can through production design and the talent of the actors and the direction of the script to like reclaim the joy in life. Like I do like, especially this comes out in the second section of the movie where we're talking to the weirdos, and they're doing the section in where the guy builds giant spheres as like art projects, and I kind of like that where he's just like trying to create something wonderful out of some would say sort of like these more squalid conditions. I've seen play, and I've met people like this in real life who take these sort of more rundown areas and try to make the most out of them. I remember talking to a guy in Germany who was trying to like keep up the memory of this old rundown sort of like it was sort of like a homeless shelter type thing, but a bit fancier than that, but it's really nice. And that kind of brings me to the next thing I want to talk about is the use of drugs in the movie, because this is something that's controversial in
Very,
the
very, yeah, here,
yeah.
here.
Why don't you give your some thoughts? I'm just what do you about how you use them and your philosophy toward them, because I know that's a lot of things that people are going to be curious about in their own works and in their own lives and whatnot. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's it's drugs are very much a thing in life, right? And it's like I don't know. It's a funny thing you're talking about, but like, I, look, the mushroom stuff. I personally am not like I've never taken it. I've never taken
No,
acid.
me
I,
neither.
I don't
Yep.
I don't even drink, or I used to drink. I don't I used to drink. I don't drink anymore. I mean, I don't. It's like, to me, the stuff but the mushroom stuff, I think there is a lot going on there in terms of what's going on in like in medicine right now, right? And
Mhm.
this isn't something I'm not saying we were thinking of and stuff like that, but I will say, like, I think while that's happening, and there are some like actual like medical data to look at like helping with
Mhm.
PTSD and all these things, we really just looked at it as a way. We almost wanted to have it just be like, almost like a potion, right? So it's almost like if this was like in some in some fantasy movie, it would just be Boyle's potion. But of course, we're in a reality. We're in Hollywood. That's a psychedelic film, so naturally, it's a drug that people like and people are like interested in. Like, oh, interesting. Like, I take that or whatever, or part of that, or they like to go to like after hour parties and go to like go to like raves, whatever that is. But really, I like to look at it like, especially in terms of the mushrooms, that it's almost like in a fantasy, like if it was like some like Lord of the Rings type. It's almost like that's Boyle's potion that he gives to those people. And what the potion does, in the shrooms, because that's what it is in the movie. But the potion that he makes, like it almost like, and maybe this is just the way I see it, because I know it's up to everybody else how they see it. But kind of the potion, what it does is it makes every character kind of double down on themselves. So and I'm not to say that's what mushrooms does. I don't know.
No. Yeah.
But like the potion that Boyle makes for people, it makes everybody double down in their little story. So like Ted, the producer, he doubles down and says, "I have to become I'm a producer. I'm going to be a tough producer," and that's really his story. He just and then even though it contradicts Paloma's character, the actress, the younger one, the star, she doubles down on herself too, saying, "I'm not going to take shit from these fucking executives because this is my life." You know what I mean? It's like it's same thing with the Daphne, the Antifa girl. She doubles down. She blows up a fucking Nazi's car. The Naya, she wants to make the discussion. She feels insecure. She eventually reaches that point of, okay, I'm going to do a discussion. It doesn't need to be the biggest thing in the world, like a big protest. It could be a few people, and that matters. The Anna character, she doubles down on her. Barry's a little bit more in the, kind of a delusional state, but like still, he doubles down. He's like, I'm going to make Barry's gym, So all the characters have that in common, I think, and I think that's what the Boyle's potion does. So I think that's the best way to answer it. And the rest of it, look, remember, it is a Mondo movie, so I think having the shock value of kind of some of the characters doing certain crazy things is just kind of fun and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's how I would best kind of describe that. And then it's just kind of funny, I think. I mean, like, I don't know, like Blim and I would sit there and laugh and just be like, oh, that's funny. So yeah, that's kind of how I would just break it down into maybe a more like intellectual sense about the shrooms. But I think that that's how I've always kind of viewed it when like when looking at it now, or even editing it, or workshopping it with like Marcus and Blim and all that kind of stuff, as being like, oh, that's what they do. They make the character double down on themselves, and that kind of creates this element of like empowerment or whatever. And it's and that yeah. So that's probably how I'd tackle that that tough question you give me.
Yeah, no, I think that's true to life. I think that's a reasonable answer. Like, because it's these things go back thousands of years. They've been used sort of like that, and like at least that in some intentional. Like you connect. There's spiritual practices where people take them to go down certain paths, and it's one. I think mushrooms could be described as like one of those things that's kind of reminiscent of magic potions, because it's something that's kind of like some witchcraft guy kind of like crafts and does a certain way to give someone an experience. I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to view it in this version. And it does fit with our theme, because people go to Boyle because he's the man who knows, and he's trying to give people a thing, and that's perfectly translates into there.
Yeah, he's a little bit of not an accredited or doctorate, but he's a little bit of like a odd scientist, you know what I mean? So that, yeah, it's kind of like with the potions and all that kind of thing. So we kind of look to that a little bit.
And I do also appreciate its use as a way to connect all the separate layers of characters, the Titans, the Weirdos, and the Dreamers, is that there's all some degree of them using it. And that's obviously how they all know each other. A lot of the main characters are guys who talk to Boyle and get their stuff from him, so that's the through line through all of them. And yeah, it's a nice little narrative tool. One other thing I did appreciate, which I noticed in the Dreamers section, is your use of the cats as symbolism, because the cats are like something all the dreamer characters have a cat, and that's, I think, to me symbolized the cat being their dream, which is a nice little image of, for me as a person who likes the cats. And I won't go into what happens with Boyle's cat, because that would give away too much of the movie. But it is
Yeah.
something that's uh, I certainly noticed, and I really appreciate. I can always sign off on cat imagery.
Yeah, so the cat thing was I don't even really you could probably tell there was like a lot of stuff shot. So it was so interesting. Like we kind of started from I think something with the early on with the cat, Lim and Marcus and I or something. We must have thought I'm not exactly even sure the original inception of that. But anyway, once we kind of knew that was there, we kind of just like slowly started putting because you're Boyle for the audience. So Boyle, this is no spoiler. Right in the beginning, we know that Boyle, the main character, loses his cat, and he's devastated by it. And it's like that's one of his plots, right? And the rats are in the attic, and the cat used to take care of that for him. So now he's like just lost and all this kind of thing, right? But throughout the movie, it's not so much like he's on a mission to find his cat. It's more like he's kind of just been he's done with it, right? Like he's kind of like it's not a story about him finding it. But throughout the movie, there's a lot of things that allude to kind of the fact that thing is still out there, and it's sad for him. And yeah, like you said, the imagery, we'd always try to like. Some of the times it was like coincidences, dude. It was so weird. It was like we would be shooting something. We're like, is that a cat in frame, or like is that there's like a poster of a cat, and like there'd just be like a few times where it was almost accidental. But there was obviously times where we were like, like oh, like let's have this actor draw a cat, like just kind of sprinkle it out throughout the movie, just so you don't forget it. And it's a little bit like a little bit like subliminal, like in something. I use that in a very benign way, but like yeah, very like just sprinkled like riddled throughout the whole movie, just to kind of have it in the back of your brain, like oh yeah, that's something that still is out is a thing.
Hmm. Next thing I want to kind of talk about is you actually very successfully kind of portray all levels of Hollywood, because Hollywood's not just the big shots that are there. There's also like lower end guys. There's scenes in the Dreamers where a lot of it deals, one of the characters' subplots is she's dealing with smaller productions. We see plays getting set up and stuff like that. Um, and you've shown all three of these layers. Also, and the weirdos is a bit more the people who live there, and you're showing like a
A little bit more
nice.
political, yeah. The weirdo section is definitely the more political aspect for sure. But yeah, no, I think like I would say like yeah, for sure. But I also would say that there's a lot of like because I live in Hollywood, right? So like there's a lot of elements of Hollywood that are not in this movie. So it's like it like and not say that in any kind of like self-deprecating, like oh we didn't do a good job, but like it's more in this kind of like fun silly way, because it's like there's a lot of elements and pieces of Hollywood that are important, that are just not, that are totally like glossed over. But ultimately we kind of thought like, okay, Titans, Weirdos, Dreamers, right? So Titans would be maybe the people with a little bit more money. The Weirdos would be people who you know, maybe are a little bit like more, they're thinkers, right? So like they're think politics. They don't care about movies. They're more like let's tear down the system or make it better, right? Those types of people. And then the Dreamers are really that obviously I think the Dreamers part probably resonates a lot of people who move out here, because it's obviously that's more about like the struggle of like not just being like having money and stuff, but like actually doing the doing the work to try to get your dream a reality, which is like whether it be an actor or Barry, who's a character who's and who's on a little bit on the older side, and he's really still he's so determined to the point where he's like this jacked guy, and he's like, I'm gonna get my gym and all these kind of things. So like, yeah, so we definitely wanted to like, I wouldn't say it like represents, we do a good job of exactly like representing Hollywood in the best way in like terms of like the types of people and but like, yeah, we wanted to just get like the kind of general vibe and essence, especially for a comedy, you know.
I kind of one part I really liked, I thought was interesting was in the Titans section, uh, you have the young starlet who's very much like a idea of like these bratty Disney like I don't know, Disney Channel. It's not just them. I don't want to pin it all on one company, but these bratty young starlets who are difficult to work with and who make all these demands despite not seeming all that talented. And I think you do a decent job of actually like portraying her point of view in a way that, if not sympathetic, at least like you get the logic going on there. And that's something I kind of want to talk.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's played by that's yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's played by Miranda Ray Hart, really talented comedian, actress, improv actor. She's incredible. But like, no, 100%. And this was I really, this is me just speaking for me, but I would say for him, it's like no, totally. I think the whole point of that was to actually be like, no, I mean, I agree with her. I mean, like the script that she's reading does suck. She should get paid as much as the other person. They are kind of annoying. Why aren't they listening to her about the lines? The lines do suck. She's right about almost everything. Now she can be look, because when you're in a position where people have been screwing you over, you can't trust anybody because you shouldn't. Not to say Ted's character's bad, 'cause I think he's just kind of he's middle management. He's not the big boss on top. So she shouldn't trust any of these people. So and this is just for me speaking. I don't want to speak for Miranda because she's so much the character, but we've talked about it before. But no, I guess see me personally, it's like yeah, I would totally agree with because you have to, for someone like that in their position, you have to be tough. You can't give them an inch because they'll just keep exploiting you. So for that character to kind of be the way she is, that's strategic. She's not doing it just kind of just to be bratty. I really it's cool you brought that up because I really believe that. I really believe that that's what we were going for. There's been some people who have been like, oh, she's unlikable. It's like, but if you really think about it, if you really break it
Mhm.
down, and if you break it down, you go, okay, why would she trust any of these people? Why wouldn't show? And if she was being too nice to these people, they would just continue to roll over her, ask for these certain things, which is very fucked up. So in many ways, like I said, though not so much to the character Ted, because I think the character Ted is, like I said, a little bit more middle management. I don't think he just wants to like get this thing done. But ultimately to the system that pretty much that really gaslights these young actors and they exploit their labor. I mean, and technically, right? I mean, even if they got paid millions of dollars, they're still doing that. So like, yeah, no, it's so cool that you brought that up because I think that's definitely what we were going for, is to not just be like, oh, look at these bratty stars. It's like obviously there's comedy in it too, so it's not like a dramatic piece about just that, but it's like, but no, underneath the comedy and the silliness and stuff, I think that's totally what we were going for, is to kind of really actually give the point of view of someone in that position, you know.
Yeah, because every point of like, oh, she's fulfilling the stereotype. For every point of that, there's a point of like, hey, I am working in a particular space. She's wealthy. She doesn't need to necessarily take some of this shit. Like even if like I think she points out, even if this movie entirely falls out through, it's going to be somewhat fine for her because she's got a certain amount of money. And then also like particularly we see what happens to some of the actresses working on the lower end of Hollywood later in the movie in the dreamers section. And when particularly in the scene where they're talking about the play and that actress stands up to the director there, she's got some very similar complaints, but they're just in very different positions. And let's be frank, there's a terrible like there are horror stories about stuff happening to these young actresses, and she's got to watch out for herself. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and and also in those acting classes too. In those acting classes, sometimes you think of these like, you know, oh look, it's like a bunch. It's like a professor, and he's teaching these students. There's a lot of toxic shit going on in those acting classes. I not you know like so I was really excited that as a writing team and all that kind of stuff that we had something like that, and like I said, through comedy, of course, but like no, the character, the acting teacher, is a psychologically abusive character. I mean, he is. I mean, he's literally he's screaming. And of course, the joke is that the guy's only fucking been on he was on Mad About You, and he's still talking about it. Mad About You is a great show. Don't get me wrong, but it's like it's this kind of like ridiculous thing where I've seen it. I've been to acting classes. Like I don't act. I mean, I acted in this movie, but I don't act. But I've been to a few classes just to kind of see what it's like. And some of these guys are very manipulative, and it's really freaky. So there's definitely a parallel there, and I think in some ways, the lower it gets in the hierarchy of like, okay, studios, it's still the same type of like toxic shit, because in a weird way they might not be exactly in the position where they feel. Some of these acts, I know acting teachers who are fantastic. This is obviously not a broad generalization, but like a few that are probably pissed off and they take it out on their students, and that's obviously that's going on. Because even when she's like does the great performance, he's like checks her name, like oh, she's amazing, and then she goes, and Mad About You sucks, and he's so petty that he literally just totally reversed his opinion and crosses it out. And that's actually something Blim and I did like in the edit room, like way towards the end. And we thought it was really funny. So he's just so fucking petty that he literally is just like totally reverses all of his excitement about like his student doing well because she like throws a jab at like a 90s sitcom he was on.
So yeah, this is your first feature film, correct? Am I mistaken in that, or?
So I directed a feature film that was a doc. So yeah, I mean it's weird. It's like I never know whether to say it is or not because it's like do docs like. But yeah, it's my second, but like my first narrative feature that I directed and wrote actually. That's produced. Yeah.
But like, you're fresh. You're pretty much in the midst of this. Why don't you tell the audience like how you're feeling about like how this experience is different from like the releases of your shorter films and your doc, and how you're going
Oh
about
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Way different, man. Because I know. So I know because are a lot of your audience do they want to be filmmakers? Is this something that you maybe even like? Because I know last show you were like, oh, do you have any advice? Like, do you want me to? Because I have a lot to say about that. Do you want me to spin it in that kind of to give it a little bit of like lessons learned kind of thing?
I think we can, because that's something that like a lot of people are interested in, and
Yeah, absolutely. So like it's so different than shorts because look, it's like the movie. I would say the movie was really starting to be shot. Like it was like the movie that it is now was when me and like Blim really came on. When Blim came on and we started to like act it out, and then we became narrative. And then before that, it was more of this kind of like writing thing that Marcus and I were doing. So it's had this weird life cycle that exists for like 6 years. This is a long time, right? So we shot it 3 years ago. It takes doing a feature takes a long time, and it's just so different. And I really recommend to people to do if they're interested in making movies to definitely do a few shorts. I mean, you really have to. It's just kind of like just to learn. You don't expect anything like out of it like crazy. Maybe you get into a few festivals and that's awesome, but like it's not a product. And the movie industry is a business. Now, if you want to make just like experimental art like shorts, which as you know, like we talked about, I did for years. I like doing that. That's fine. There's no issue with that. I literally do that, and there's no business behind that. It's just it's art. It's like painting. Now you can, of course, there's odd ways you can kind of go about doing that and make money or whatever, but primarily that's for art, for art's sake, right? For movies, it's a little different. It requires money. So if it requires money, you kind of have to make it a commercial thing because you have investors or you want it to get seen and all these things because you put years of labor, which a lot of was put on by all the people involved in this movie, into it. So you have to follow through. You have to actually have it come out, and that takes a long time because especially for a small movie, like a really lower micro budget movie, there's just a lot of stuff that needs to like happen, and it takes time for things to happen. It's got something like this. Obviously, the editing made it took a while because there's so much footage because we shot it in this mockumentary style. We weren't shooting specifically like this. A lot of it was like shoot this, point at that, shoot that, and it was like so the editing took a while. But yeah, so it's just the biggest difference in the world. Like it's in some ways there's similarities of just being like shoot stuff, edit, release it. But no, I mean all those elements are different because even releasing it, you got to find a distributor. You can't just you got to do right by your cast and make them feel like they're going to get something out of it, and that's by people seeing it. So you don't just want to if you include people in your movies, especially if you don't pay them because you might not have a budget, it can't just be your little art project. It's unfair to them, and I think that's a really important thing that I see a lot, and I'm not a fan of because it's like and it's okay if you try and you don't succeed, and that's okay. You didn't do wrong by your cast. But you really got to try to make sure people see the movie for yourself, for your investors, your actors, for your producing partners. You got to really just make sure it gets seen and try your best to get that happen because it's hard. There's so many movies nowadays. So I would say the one of the biggest differences, not just in terms of making the movie, in terms of really getting it out there. That's I think an important lesson to be learned for these kind of things. With short films, it's like not a lot of people are probably going to see it. It's fine. But like with a feature, you want to really get it out there, especially if you have a lot of people involved. And yeah, hopefully ours will get out there. So far it's been going good. But yeah, I would say that's a bit. For some reason, when you said that to me, maybe because right now I'm closer to the actual release of the movie. Maybe that's probably why, a little recency bias. But that's just came out to me the most of a big difference. And then obviously the shoot itself, and the other thing too is how to entertain someone for this long. And this is kind of actually probably some of the stuff that I may be underestimating when I just talk about like the actual like release of getting it out there. It's like entertaining somebody for 15 minutes is way different than trying to keep someone's attention for over an hour, like an hour, especially an hour and a half. It's all that gets down to like great acting, like by our performers, and trying to be and good and having really good writing partners who really understand how like Marcus is really good at story structure, so he was able to. Now it might seem like a crazy film or things are happening, whatever, but if you really look, there's character structure, 3 arc structures for each character, and that has lots. Marcus was really he's like a very what's the word? He's just basically very rigid on that, but that's the best. That's what you want because screenplay is all about structure, right? It's not a literary thing. Like if you're like I'm a screenwriter, you're not like it's like a different kind of writer. It's all structure. So it's because that's how you keep people's attention, and so that's another big thing because in shorts you don't really almost have. It's hard to almost do it's in a different way to do a 3-act structure in a short because you don't only have so much time. But for a feature, you have to really have that structure so people are able to continue to watch it and try to be engaged. Now I'm sure many people watch this will be like the structure there, whatever. They might not work for them, and they might kind of be like, like this is too much or whatever. But ultimately, if you're a little bit hooked into it, you got to keep them hooked, and that's the biggest difference between a short and a feature. Is a feature you have to make sure that in the writing it really is structured out, that it's saying, okay, catalyst, first beat of Act 1, the story kind of begins. Halfway through the movie, there's the point of no return for the character, and then there's the low point. The character hero is kind of all is lost. In this case, like it's when he's kind of just given up on the rats, in this kind of crazy movie. And he's, looking at himself in the mirror. And then there's the moment of the triggers the climax. And then the climax is the hero versus the villain. and then there's the resolution, and it's like that's the most important thing when you make a feature, and the biggest difference between a short. A short could just be kind of like a funny scene or whatever, but a feature requires that scope. And I don't care how experimental your film is, you probably should have some version of that if it's a feature. Otherwise, it's really hard to keep the audience engaged. So we hope that the audience stays engaged for this one because we were going for that.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, I don't think like even non-linear films like it do demand structure. Like even like I've don't know if I brought this up, but like on the show before, but like Pulp Fiction is a movie that's like these are events that take place completely out of order, but and these events are put in a section where it goes to a narrative scope. So it's all very well thought out in a lot of these the best movies, and
100%, dude.
yeah, and
Yeah, no, I was
yeah.
so I was just. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just watched Pulp Fiction recently. So it's so funny you say that because that is true. Everybody's always like, "Oh, I'll say another example after we talk about this." It's like, but in Pulp Fiction, the character Butch, right? I'll just pick a random one. This is 3 act structure. He's got there's an incident where gets the catalyst or the inciting incident is that the fight goes, he decides he's going to screw over Marcellus Wallace, and then the catalyst is he forgets the watch situation. He goes to get the watch. He kills the guy. He's all in at middle of the second act. He tries to go back home, and then there's the low point. He's literally in a fucking dungeon with the Gimp. All is lost for the hero, and then he escapes. He has a moment of really moral decision making, whether I should just leave Marcellus Wallace down there with these horrible, racist, disgusting, people, and leave and be free, or do I help him because this is so fucked up? And he decides to go do that, and then there's the resolution. I mean, like, you know what I mean? So if you just watch that by itself, it would be like, it wouldn't be some totally crazy thing, you know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, so that would be, for me at least, when you brought up Pulp Fiction, I just immediately thought of that. And then like Pi too. Someone would try to argue with me on this, and they're like, well, look at Pi. I like Pi is an extremely structured movie.
No.
It's one of the most. It's actually almost like it's like formulaic in a good way. It's like 80. It's like a very like quick movie because it's just basically like a very simple story. Now it's crazy because it's black and white and it's got wide angles, but it's not like So don't get me wrong. I love some movies that don't do this. There's some old '60s movies and stuff that are just wild, but that's cool too. But like me personally, just speaking for myself, I tend to really try to lock down on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and like I mean, if you do end up watching Pulp Fiction and don't think that last scene where Samuel L. Jackson's holding the gun against those guys robbing the store is like the proper climax of that movie, I don't know what to tell you. It's all building to a certain thing, and I think some of the movies I've come out the worst of, where I've come out feeling the worst about, were like movies where I got to the end, I'm like, this is the climax. This isn't feel like the emotional end of the film. And yeah, no, it's all very clearly structured. I think that's a lot of things people don't necessarily understand about the script writing end of production.
Yeah, man, and a lot of credit when we were writing this. Marcus, the co-writer, really helped with the heist stuff, and that obviously we've gotten really good feedback on that kind of being a good climax because it ties everything together. There's stakes and all that stuff. So that was really we were I remember, yeah, it was a tough thing to think of, but we finally got through it in large part to the collaboration of Marcus with us, and it was awesome. He really did an amazing job. It was really fun to shoot for me and Glenn to shoot that kind of really good job that he did of breaking down this kind of Ocean's 11 like thing. I won't give anything away, obviously, but some people will check it out. But yeah, so that was yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. It's all about that structure.
Yeah, you guys gotta watch the movie for the climax. That is just like something really well put together, and you don't quite see it. You don't quite. I certainly didn't quite see the end coming, and then when it happened, I was like, "Wait, oh my god, what the?" It was great. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, great. Little psychedelic feature that gets like claims joy from the mundane. I gotta say, I don't know. Anything else we gotta talk about?
Yeah, I got time if you have any other questions. I'm chilling.
No, I think that's the main thing. I think we got a good little show here. I don't really have any big good questions
Cool.
left.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just curious for you. What are some of your like favorite psychedelic movies? Like what kind of like anything like are there any or is that a genre you maybe more you kind of are a little bit new to like what's your like relationship to some of those types of movies like Fear and Loathing and I mean, Pulp Fiction is I would even say it's not psychedelic but it's like it's definitely groovy you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, I do like the word. You do like the use of the term groovy in this. I do think that term should kind of make a comeback a bit more. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it never it went the word groovy went away so it was just we kind of we I was just Bloom and I just found it funny we just kind of were like yeah we just kind of kept calling things groovy it was like
It's a good word. I don't use it enough. I'm a little newer to the genre. I've picked up a bit more of it because of the show, and I've been listening to a bit more of that sort of music lately. I've One of the bands I've really appreciated lately is Iron Butterfly. I've got most of their albums now actually on vinyl. I got like there's a guy out of my town running like a used record store, so I've been getting in more into that. Interesting seeing like a record store in a town of 10,000 people in this day and age. No, I've
yeah that's awesome.
yeah, no, and it's like this. There's like a wide range of gambits of like the happy psychedelic movies and like the that where this one sits, and then like the really almost medical time of like the 1960s. Like a film I watched that was kind of like in this more serious vein is David Cronenberg's first movie Stereo, which is like an art house film with like it's doesn't
Yeah,
have any native
yeah.
audio.
Yeah. That's why I asked, man. I'm gonna write that one down. I know David Cronenberg, but I never actually saw it. So I'm gonna put that in my little cue that up.
It is an interesting movie. It is like obvious, like it's not something everyone's gonna walk away from. Like, and it's certainly not a perfect movie, but it's like a black and white movie with no native onset audio because the camera he used or the camera he had rented to make that film was too loud, and if you tried to record audio on set, it would come across on the recording, which is just the struggle of making an independent movie in the 1960s. Is you just get these nightmare cameras that are just impossible to use, and it's yeah, it's about like these guys getting into like going under a medical experiment where they get into like a become like a telepathic hive mind. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing before we go too is yeah, no, I'll definitely when maybe when it releases in Canada, you can have on like Miranda Ray Hart and Alyssa Sabo or something. Maybe it's two of the actors or something like that because it'll be cool to get their perspective. You know, because I hate speaking for the. When I do these, I don't want to speak for the because the film's all about collaboration. So it's like it's like with everybody involved, every single person. So like having them come on, they might have some really cool stuff to say about some of the questions you had on earlier, especially about like Paloma, the actress and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Show's awesome. As I said in the last show, I'm a big fan of Canada. To my buddies up in the north, so really cool to come on, man.
Yeah. No. Good. Yeah. It's always great country. I'm reading a book currently about like the history of Canadian horror movies, and we've got some good ones. I'm in the 90s currently. I'm not quite done. That's my current project. But yeah, no, it's great
Oh,
country,
that's
great
cool.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I would know nothing about. Like that's so cool. That's what's so cool about like cinema is you keep kind of finding these like subgenres and geography and like and yeah, and it definitely keep me posted on you like find cool stuff because what I like to do if I follow obviously the movie and if you can on Instagram to the audience Mondo Hollywoodland. And then you can follow the company's assembly line entertainment. So I'll post a lot. I do a lot of deep dives and weird stuff into like old movies and like. So if you're into that, like maybe we can even do something with that horror stuff. But yeah, I love like finding like the mix and crannies of like little subgenres of film and like kind of like that kind of stuff. And then follow Good Hammer TV, which is Blim's company. But yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah. I've my habit recently has just been like I've occasionally just gotten a hold of like old VHSs with like weird movies, and like some of them have been good. I think I found one that's called Thunderfist on the counter. I can find nothing about it. It's some Korean kung fu martial arts movie, and it's great. I just wish I had a better print of it, but it's a fun little journey going on finding weird
VHS, man.
movies.
That's some like that's some cinephile stuff when you're like I have only have the VHS. VHSs are so weird. I have some at home. Yeah, I have some at home, they're the quality is it's tough because it's like yeah the quality is just rough, but like it is what it is. I mean, it kind of makes it cool though, you know.
I have I still have my VHS player, and Cody occasionally makes fun of me for it because I like watch movies for the show on VHS because I've had a couple of them, and it's been fun.
Yeah, it's probably a different kind of viewing experience. It's probably a
Yeah,
little bit of a. It's probably closer to like a. If obviously not a good, you know, a good reel of film that you're watching on a good projector, but like it is literally kind of a reel, you know. So it does feel probably a little bit more like it's a little bit more closely associated film. I'm not the film expert or the celluloid kind of film like that kind of stuff expert. I gotta say, Marcus is probably a little bit better at that stuff. But like but yeah, it's cool. I really dig all the kind of old you know the finding old movies and the VHSs and finding reels from old movies and all that stuff. It's part of the excitement and the, like the whole like life or the journey of like cinema. You know what I mean? It's just like not just about all the big movies, but kind of about these little things that kind of existed in a place and time. And you know, we can kind of like find them, and it's like it's cool.
I got my from my last haul. I got this film. I got this VHS tape. It's like in this really ratty container. It's called Starship. I have no idea what I'm in for. I'm watching it sometime tonight, but it's gonna be interesting. That's what my evening is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah, awful, and yeah, no, yeah, great to talk to you. I guess repeat where they can find you and the movie and your other films.
Yeah, so the movie is on Amazon Prime in the U.S. right now. It'll be available in the U.K. and then it'll be available in Canada in November. And maybe we can revisit. We'll chat again then or something. And then you can find the follow us on Instagram at Mondo Hollywoodland. And then feel free to also follow the company Assembly Line Entertainment. That's mine. You know, we do a lot of cool stuff on Instagram. And then Blims, which is at Good Hammer TV. So Mondo Hollywoodland on Instagram and Amazon Prime is where you can watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can remember you guys can still follow the podcast on wherever you guys follow podcasts. We got Facebook at Kyle and Cody's called Cinemacast. There's also an Instagram. I got my Twitter at Lord Brokenshire. You can watch this on YouTube now. This will most likely go up day and day with when I upload it on YouTube. But yeah, that's something you can pretty reliably find the new episodes on if that's how you prefer to watch these things. So yeah, we'll see you. I think how I got this working out is later this week when we review Uwe Boll's In the Name of the King. See you guys later.